Let me ask you a question that might shake you a little. What if the reason you haven't reached the level of success you know you're capable of has nothing to do with luck, talent, or opportunity? What if the real reason is something almost everyone overlooks, something hiding in plain sight? Most people spend their entire lives searching for answers outside themselves, more information, more strategies, more motivation, and they still feel stuck. Today, I want to show you the one missing key that quietly separates those who struggle from those who rise. And once you see it, you will never unsee it again. Let me tell you something most people don't want to hear, but deep down, they already know it's true. Success is not missing from your life because you don't know enough. It's not because you haven't watched enough videos, read enough books, or listened to enough advice. If knowledge alone created results, everyone who ever read a self-help book would be living their dream life right now. But that's not the world we see, is it? We see people who know exactly what to do and still don't do it. And that's where the real issue lives, because success doesn't respond to information. It responds to identity. Right now, you're not getting results based on your potential. You are getting results based on who you believe you are. Your income, your habits, your confidence, your energy, your relationships, they are all perfectly aligned with your current identity. And here's the uncomfortable truth. If you keep doing what you've always done, you'll keep getting what you've always gotten. Not because you're incapable, but because your identity keeps pulling you back to what feels familiar. Think about it. Every action you take is simply you acting in alignment with the story you tell yourself about who you are. If you see yourself as someone who tries, you'll try. If you see yourself as someone who struggles, you'll find struggle. If you see yourself as someone who always starts but never finishes, guess what your behavior will prove over and over again? Not because you're broken, but because your identity demands consistency. Most people try to change their life from the outside in. They say, if I get more confidence, then I'll take action. If I make more money, then I'll feel worthy. If I succeed, then I'll believe in myself. But it doesn't work that way. The order is backwards. You don't become confident because you succeed. You succeed because you decide who you are before the evidence shows up. Identity always comes first. Results come second. This is why motivation feels temporary for so many people. They get excited. They feel inspired. They promise themselves this time will be different. And for a few days, maybe even a few weeks, it is. But then life hits. Old patterns creep back in. Doubt gets louder. And suddenly they're right back where they started, wondering what went wrong. Nothing went wrong. Their identity simply reasserted control. Your identity is like a thermostat. You can turn up the heat for a moment with motivation, but eventually it resets to the temperature it's programmed for. If your identity says, this is as good as it gets, you'll sabotage anything beyond that level. If your identity says, I'm not the kind of person who wins, you'll unconsciously find ways to stop yourself just before the breakthrough. Not because you want to fail, but because the unfamiliar feels unsafe. And this is where most people get stuck for decades. They keep trying to upgrade their strategy while never upgrading their identity. New goals, same self-image, new plans, same internal limits. You can't outperform how you see yourself. You will always find a way to come back to what feels like you. Let me be clear about something. Your identity is not who you truly are. It's who you've practiced being. It's a collection of habits, emotional patterns, decisions, and meanings you repeated long enough that they became automatic. And the good news, anything that was conditioned can be reconditioned. But it doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design. High performers don't wait until they feel different to act different. They decide who they are, and then they build evidence to support that decision. They don't ask, am I confident enough to do this? They ask, what would a confident person do right now? And then they do that, even when their voice shakes, even when their heart races, even when doubt is screaming in their head, because identity is built through action taken in spite of emotion. Every time you act against your old identity, you weaken it. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how small, you cast a vote for a new version of you. And those votes add up, not overnight, not magically, but relentlessly. And eventually the identity shifts. And when the identity shifts, everything else follows. This is why small disciplines matter more than big intentions. This is why daily standards beat occasional bursts of effort. This is why the most powerful words you can say are not, I'll try, but this is who I am now. Because once something becomes part of who you are, it no longer requires motivation. You don't negotiate with it. You don't debate it. You simply do it. Most people never find this missing key because it requires radical honesty. It requires you to stop blaming circumstances and start examining patterns. It requires you to ask, who am I being that's creating this life? And that question can be uncomfortable, but it's also liberating. Because the moment you realize you created it unconsciously is the moment you realize you can recreate it consciously. You don't need to become someone else. You need to remember who you are capable of being and start acting from that place. Today, not someday, not when it feels easy, not when you're ready, but now. Because the fastest way to change your life is to stop waiting for permission and decide right now that you are the kind of person who follows through, who rises, who finishes, and who wins. And the moment you change who you believe you are, the results have no choice but to follow. Let's go deeper, because if you miss this, you'll keep working hard and still feel stuck. The real battle for your success is not happening out there in the economy, in your past, or in what other people did or didn't do for you. The real battle is invisible. It's happening in the quiet moments of your life, in the space between a thought and a decision, in the conversations you have with yourself when no one else is listening. Every single day you are talking to yourself, constantly, and that voice is shaping your emotions, your choices, and ultimately your destiny. Yet most people have never been taught how to control it. They let it run wild. They let it repeat old stories, old doubts, old fears, and then they wonder why they feel drained, hesitant, or overwhelmed. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You sink to the level of your inner dialogue. Think about this. The same situation can produce two completely different outcomes depending on the meaning you give it. One person fails and says, "This proves I'm not good enough," and they quit. Another person fails and says, "This is feedback. I'm getting closer," and they grow stronger. Same event, different meaning, and meaning controls emotion. Emotion controls action. Action controls results. That chain is running your life, whether you're aware of it or not. Most people don't realize that their inner voice isn't telling the truth. It's telling a habit. That voice was trained over years of repetition, emotional experiences, and survival-based thinking. Its job is not to make you successful. Its job is to keep you safe. And safety often sounds like excuses. It sounds like, wait, not yet, what if, maybe later, don't risk it. The mind would rather protect you from discomfort than push you toward growth. This is why you can feel inspired one moment and paralyzed the next. Your logic might be saying, go for it, but your inner dialogue is whispering, what if you fail? And the loudest voice wins, not the smartest, not the most accurate, the loudest. If you don't consciously take control of that voice, it will control you quietly, subtly, relentlessly. Here's the truth most people never hear. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who listens to them. And the moment you realize that, everything changes, because now you have a choice. You can question the voice. You can interrupt the pattern. You can decide what meanings you attach to events instead of letting old conditioning do it for you. High performers don't have fewer negative thoughts than everyone else. They just don't believe them. They don't let a moment of doubt turn into a day of paralysis. They don't let a setback turn into a story about who they are. They channel their inner dialogue in real time. They ask better questions, and better questions lead to better answers. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? They ask, what is this trying to teach me? Instead of saying, I can't handle this, they say, how can I grow through this? Instead of hearing, you're not ready, they ask, what's one step I can take right now? Your brain is a problem-solving machine. It will answer whatever question you give it. If you ask disempowering questions, you get disempowering answers. If you ask empowering questions, you get strategies, ideas, and courage. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of the questions you ask yourself when pressure shows up. Most people wait until life calms down before they change their inner dialogue, but life doesn't calm down. Pressure is not the exception, it's the training ground. The goal is not to silence the inner voice. That's impossible. The goal is to train it, to make it serve you instead of sabotage you. And here's where it connects to everything else we're talking about. Your inner dialogue reinforces your identity. If you constantly tell yourself you're behind, you'll act behind. If you constantly tell yourself you're capable, you'll find ways to prove it. Words create images. Images create emotions. Emotions create momentum. That's not philosophy. That's how your nervous system works. You felt this before. Think of a time when you were absolutely certain you could handle something. Notice how you moved, how you spoke, how you showed up. That certainty didn't come from external proof. It came from a decision you made internally. You changed the dialogue and your state changed instantly. Most people think confidence is something you wait for. It's not. Confidence is a result of how you talk to yourself before the outcome is guaranteed. It's the ability to say, I'll figure this out, even when you don't yet know how. That single sentence has built more success stories than talent ever did. If you want to change your results, you must change the voice that narrates your life, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, in the moment doubt shows up. That's where the work is. That's where the breakthrough lives. Because the real enemy is not fear. It's letting fear speak without challenge. When you take control of your inner dialogue, you take control of your emotional state. When you control your state, you control your actions. And when you control your actions consistently, success stops being a mystery and starts being a pattern. Change the voice and you change the life. Now let's talk about something that explains why so many smart, capable, talented people stay stuck, even when they know exactly what to do. Because if logic alone created success, you'd already have everything you want. You wouldn't struggle with consistency, you wouldn't procrastinate, you wouldn't sabotage momentum, you'd simply decide and execute. But that's not how humans work. We are not driven by logic first. We are driven by emotion. Every decision you've ever made was made because of how you believed it would make you feel, even the logical ones. You take action when you associate enough pleasure with it or enough pain with staying where you are. That's it. That's the game. And most people never learn how to consciously control this, so they live at the mercy of their emotional patterns. Think about it. You know exercise is good for you. You know discipline creates freedom. You know avoiding difficult conversations costs you more in the long run. Yet in the moment, comfort often wins. Why? Because the emotional pull of comfort feels stronger than the intellectual understanding of long-term gain. Emotion beats logic every time when they're not aligned. Most people think they lack discipline, willpower, or motivation. That's not the real problem. The real problem is they haven't learned how to change their emotional state on demand. They wait to feel ready. They wait to feel confident. They wait to feel inspired. And while they wait, life passes. Your emotional state is the lens through which you experience everything. When you're in a powerful state, problems look like challenges. When you're in a weak state, the same problems feel overwhelming. Nothing changed externally. Only your state changed. And that state determines what actions you take or don't take. Here's what most people don't realize. Emotion is not something that just happens to you. It's something you generate through what you focus on, what you say to yourself, how you use your body, and what meaning you give to events. Change any one of those and your emotional state shifts. Change them consistently and your life changes. But most people are on autopilot. Their body is slouched, their breathing is shallow, their focus is locked on what's wrong, and their inner dialogue is critical or fearful. Then they wonder why they feel unmotivated. That's like trying to drive with the parking brake on and blaming the car. High performers understand this at a deep level. They don't try to force action from a drained state. They shift their state first. They move their body. They change their posture. They breathe differently. They deliberately focus on what they can control, and suddenly action feels possible again. This is why two people can face the same obstacle and have completely different outcomes. One collapses emotionally and gives up. The other becomes energized and resourceful. The difference is not the obstacle, it's the emotional state they bring to it. Emotion is fuel. When you're in a disempowering emotional state, everything. Energy feels heavy, effort feels exhausting, time drags. When you're in a powerful state, effort feels lighter, time moves faster, ideas show up, courage appears. That's not coincidence. That's chemistry. Your brain releases different chemicals depending on your emotional state. Those chemicals affect your energy, your creativity, your confidence, and your resilience. So when people say, I just don't feel like it, what they're really saying is, I haven't learned how to shift my state. Here's the breakthrough. You don't need to eliminate negative emotions. You need to stop letting them drive. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt are part of growth. The goal is not to feel fearless. The goal is to feel capable while fear is present. And capability comes from knowing you can influence your state. Most people try to think their way into action. That rarely works. Action comes from emotion. So the question becomes, how do you generate the emotional state that supports action instead of waiting for it to magically appear? You start by deciding what you focus on. Focus is power. What you consistently focus on expands in your experience. If you focus on everything that could go wrong, your body responds with tension and hesitation. If you focus on what's possible and what's within your control, your body responds with energy and engagement. You change your language. The words you use internally are commands to your nervous system. I can't handle this creates shutdown. I'll figure this out creates movement. The words may seem small, but their emotional impact is massive. You change your physiology. Stand up, breathe deeply, move with intention. Your body is not separate from your mind. It's the fastest way to influence it. You don't wait to feel strong to stand strong. You stand strong and the feeling follows. And most importantly, you link pain to staying the same and pleasure to moving forward. As long as staying where you are feels safer or more comfortable than changing, you won't change. But the moment the emotional cost of staying stuck outweighs the discomfort of growth, action becomes inevitable. This is why people often change only after crisis. The pain finally becomes loud enough, but you don't have to wait for that. You can consciously decide what pain and pleasure mean to you. You can decide that staying small hurts more than trying. You can decide that discipline feels better than regret. When you master your emotional state, you stop relying on motivation. You stop negotiating with resistance. You stop waiting for the perfect moment. You move because you've trained yourself to access power on demand. And when emotion starts working for you instead of against you, action stops feeling forced. It becomes natural. Control your emotional state and you control the direction of your life. Now let's clear up one of the biggest lies that keeps people stuck for years. Most people are waiting for confidence before they act. They tell themselves, once I feel ready, I'll start. Once I feel more confident, I'll speak up. Once I believe in myself, I'll take the risk. And while they wait, opportunity passes, momentum dies, and self-doubt grows stronger. Here's the truth. Confidence is not the cause of action. It's the result of it. If confidence came first, nobody would ever struggle. Everyone would just wake up one day feeling powerful and unstoppable. But that's not how confidence is built. Confidence is built the same way muscles are built, through use, through strain, through repetition, through showing up when it's uncomfortable and proving to yourself not once, but over time, that you can handle more than you thought. Most people misunderstand fear. They think fear is a signal to stop. It's not. Fear is a sign that you're stepping into growth. Every time you stretch beyond who you've been, fear shows up. If fear disappeared, it would mean you stopped growing. So the goal isn't to wait until fear is gone. The goal is to move while it's there. Winners don't feel more confident than everyone else at the beginning. They just move sooner. They take action with shaky hands. They speak even when their voice trembles. They start before they feel ready. And every time they do, something powerful happens. Their brain updates their identity. It starts saying, maybe I'm someone who can handle this. Action is evidence, and evidence builds belief. Think about your own life. The things you're most confident about today are the things you've done repeatedly. You weren't confident the first time. You became confident because you did it anyway. But somewhere along the way, you forgot that formula and started expecting confidence to magically appear before action. That's backwards. Most people let hesitation decide their future. They feel uncertain and assume it means not now, but uncertainty doesn't mean no, it means new. And new always feels uncomfortable before it feels normal. This is why small actions are so powerful. You don't need a massive leap, you need a committed step. One action taken today that aligns with the person you want to become. When you keep promises to yourself, even small ones, your self-trust grows. And self-trust is the foundation of confidence. Every time you say you'll do something and don't, you weaken that trust. Every time you follow through, you strengthen it. Confidence is not about hype or positive thinking. It's about integrity with yourself. High performers understand this. They don't wait for certainty. They create momentum. They know that motion creates emotion. When you move your body, when you take action, your emotional state shifts. Energy increases. Clarity improves. Courage shows up after you start, not before. This is why procrastination feels heavy and action feels liberating. Even imperfect action creates relief because your nervous system recognizes progress. Stagnation creates anxiety. Movement creates power. Most people overestimate how ready they need to be. You don't need to see the whole path. You only need to see the next step. And clarity comes from engagement, not from thinking. The mind wants guarantees. Life doesn't offer them, but action creates feedback. And feedback creates adjustment, and adjustment creates growth. That's how confidence is built, not by avoiding mistakes, but by learning you can recover from them. Here's something critical. Action doesn't just change your results. It changes how you see yourself, and how you see yourself determines everything. When you act despite fear, you send yourself a message. I'm someone who moves forward. When you avoid action, you send a different message. Over time, those messages become identity. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your standards. And one of the most powerful standards you can set is this: I act even when it's uncomfortable Most people are not afraid of failure. They're afraid of what failure might say about them. But failure doesn't define you. Avoidance does. Trying and learning builds strength. Sitting still builds regret. You don't need to feel confident to take action. You need to take action to feel confident. And the sooner you stop negotiating with that truth, the faster your life changes. Because the moment you stop waiting to feel ready and start moving anyway, confidence stops being something you chase. It becomes something you earn. Now let's talk about the enemy almost no one wants to confront because it doesn't look dangerous. It doesn't feel like failure. T doesn't feel like fear. In fact, it feels good. It feels safe. It feels familiar. And that's exactly why it's so deadly. Comfort is the silent killer of potential. Most people don't fail because life knocks them down. They fail because life gets comfortable enough that they stop pushing, they stop stretching, they stop demanding more from themselves. And slowly, quietly, without realizing it, they trade their future for familiarity. Comfort never announces itself as a threat. It whispers. It says, you deserve a break. You've done enough. Why risk what you already have? And if you listen long enough, comfort convinces you to shrink your dreams so they fit your current life instead of expanding your life to fit your dreams. Here's the hard truth. Everything you want is on the other side of discomfort. Every level of growth, every breakthrough, every version of you that feels proud and alive, it all lives just beyond what's familiar. And the reason most people never reach it is not lack of talent, not lack of intelligence, not lack of opportunity. It's because they stop challenging themselves once survival is handled. Comfort feels like peace, but it's often disguised stagnation. Growth feels uncomfortable, but it's where aliveness lives. And the tragedy is that most people don't realize they've settled until years later when regret finally gets louder than comfort. Think about it. When was the last time you deliberately did something that stretched you? Not because you had to, not because life forced you, but because you chose growth over ease. That's the difference between people who evolve and people who plateau. Your nervous system is designed to seek efficiency. It wants familiar patterns, familiar routes, familiar behaviors. But familiar doesn't mean fulfilling, it just means known. And if you don't consciously choose discomfort, your brain will choose comfort for you every time. This is why people say they want change, but their habits stay the same. This is why dreams stay dreams, because change requires discomfort, and comfort has been framed as success. At least I'm okay, at least I'm not struggling, at least it's stable. And while there's nothing wrong with appreciation, there's everything wrong with letting comfort become your ceiling. High performers understand this at a deep level. They don't avoid discomfort. They schedule it. They train themselves to lean into what's hard, what's awkward, what's challenging, not because they enjoy pain, but because they value growth more than ease. They know that discomfort is temporary, but regret can last a lifetime. Comfort keeps you negotiating with yourself. I'll start tomorrow. I'll push later. Now's not the right time. Growth demands a different language. It asks, what am I willing to tolerate staying the same? Because what you tolerate becomes your standard, and your standards shape your destiny. The scariest part about comfort is that it slowly erodes hunger. It dulls urgency. It makes average feel acceptable. And once that happens, potential goes unused, not because it disappeared, but because it was never demanded. You were not designed to live a life where you're merely comfortable. You were designed to grow, to expand, to test yourself, to discover what you're capable of. And every time you choose comfort over challenge, you delay that discovery. Discomfort doesn't mean chaos. It means conscious stretching. It means choosing the difficult conversation instead of avoiding it. It means pushing one more rep when your body wants to quit. It means taking the step even when certainty is missing. These moments seem small, but they compound into character. Most people wait until discomfort finds them through crisis, loss, or pressure, but the most powerful people choose it before life forces it. They make discomfort a tool, not a punishment. And here's the paradox. The more you train yourself to live slightly outside your comfort zone, the more comfortable you become with growth. What once felt scary becomes normal. What once felt impossible becomes expected. Your comfort zone expands, not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. Comfort tells you to protect who you've been. Growth asks you to become who you could be. If you want a life that feels extraordinary, you have to be willing to feel uncomfortable on purpose. Not all the time, but consistently, daily, in small, meaningful ways, because comfort feels good now, but growth feels good forever. And the moment you stop letting comfort decide for you is the moment your true potential finally has room to breathe. Now let's bring it all home, because this is where everything either becomes real or stays theoretical. Most people are waiting for a breakthrough, a moment, a big win that finally changes everything. They think success is an event, something dramatic, something visible, something that flips a switch overnight. And that belief keeps them stuck longer than anything else. Because success is not built in moments, it's built in standards. Your life today is not the result of what you say you want, it's the result of what you consistently accept, what you tolerate, what you repeat, what you walk past without changing. That's your real standard. And standards, not goals, determine your future. A goal is something you hope for. A standard is something you live by. Most people have goals they talk about and standards they actually follow. They say they want more energy, but their standard is poor sleep and no boundaries. They say they want confidence, but their standard is avoiding discomfort. They say they want freedom, but their standard is inconsistency. And then they wonder why nothing changes. Here's the truth. You don't get what you want. You get what you tolerate. Standards are not created by what you do once in a while. They're created by what you do when no one is watching, when you're tired, when you don't feel like it, when it would be easy to let it slide. That's where identity is locked in. High performers don't rely on motivation. They rely on non-negotiables. They decide in advance who they are, what they will and won't accept from themselves. That decision removes drama. It removes debate. It removes hesitation. Because when something is a standard, there's no question about whether you'll do it. The question is only how. Most people live in negotiation mode with themselves. Should I? Do I feel like it? Maybe tomorrow. Standards end negotiation. And the moment negotiation ends, energy returns, clarity returns, power returns. Think about areas of your life where you already have strong standards. You don't debate them. You don't wait for motivation. You just do them. That's why they're stable. That's why they work. And that's proof that you already know how to live this way. You just haven't applied it everywhere yet. Standards shape habits. Habits shape character. Character shapes destiny. This is why consistency beats intensity every time. One powerful day doesn't change your life. One powerful week doesn't either. But small, disciplined actions done daily reshape your nervous system, your identity, and your future. Not because they're dramatic, but because they're dependable. Most people underestimate the power of daily alignment. They think what they do today doesn't matter, but what you do today trains you for tomorrow. Every action reinforces a standard, whether you realize it or not. When you skip what matters, you train yourself to break promises. When you follow through, you train self-trust. And self-trust is the foundation of confidence, courage, and momentum. This is where comfort, emotion, identity, and action all come together. When your standard is low, comfort wins. When your standard is high, growth becomes automatic. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your standards. And here's the shift that changes everything. Stop asking, what do I feel like doing today? And start asking, who do I decide to be today? Because success is not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. It's about doing what you said you would do long enough for results to become inevitable. It's about showing up again, especially after a bad day. Most people quit too early because they judge themselves in moments instead of patterns. One missed day becomes a story. One mistake becomes an excuse. High performers don't do that. They correct fast and recommit faster. They don't let a slip become a slide. Standards are not rigid rules meant to punish you. They are anchors. They stabilize you when emotion fluctuates. They guide you when motivation fades. They keep you moving forward even when life gets messy. And the most powerful standards are simple: sleep, movement, focus, follow through, truth with yourself, daily progress. These are not glamorous, but they work and they compound. Most people never experience extraordinary success because they keep waiting for extraordinary conditions, but extraordinary lives are built under ordinary conditions through extraordinary standards. You don't need more time. You don't need more resources. You don't need permission. You need a decision about what you will no longer accept from yourself, a decision about what you will do daily no matter what. Because the moment you raise your standards, your life rises to meet them. And when you stop waiting for a breakthrough and start living by non-negotiable daily standards, success stops being something you chase. It becomes who you are.